what a lot of the world calls drug dealer, to me, they're medicine men. They stick to these medicines, and without the tremendous risk they run, so many of us couldn't worship. So, I don't aspire to be that. And again, no offense to it. I really want to do the religious stuff. Everyone else, you take care of the details when you're dealing with the sacrament. We'll be more the community.
The amazing thing about the mushrooms is that they speak. They talk to you. They will answer questions, carry on conversations. Psilocybin just pulls up a chair on the porch and puts its feet up.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Psilocybin Says. I'm Eric Osborne, but you probably already knew that. If you didn't, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. You're in for a special treat today. In this episode, I'm talking with someone who is an inspiration, a friend, pretty awesome guy all around. That is Steve Urquhart of the Divine Assembly. The Divine Assembly, if you didn't know, is a psilocybin church based in Utah that I want to say kind of specifically, not necessarily, but there's a lot of ex-Mormons in Utah. Steve himself is an ex-Mormon, and he's really honest about his kind of experience coming out of that. Let's just call it a cult, because that's what it is. He was with me in another episode way back where we talked a little more about that. In this conversation, we get more into the mechanics of running a psychedelic church, kind of what they've seen, what they're experiencing, where they think they're headed. And off the bat, what Steve does that really is just exemplary of his character, in my opinion, and why he's such an inspiration, is he comes right out from the start and talks about his recent diagnosis of borderline personality, which is, I can say, as someone who has not been formally diagnosed borderline personality, but by God, I got all 9 of them, y'all, that it is a really, really difficult thing to talk about. There is so much stigma around this condition. We found it interesting that the two of us both founded psychedelic churches and both have this this challenge, shall we say. So Steve has just, again, continued to be an inspiration to me, and I know to so many others. He's doing amazing work out in Utah. They're growing by leaps and bounds. I'm really proud of his courage. I'm proud of how he stands up and how his integrity, and I'm proud to call him a friend and a colleague. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side of the mushroom. Psilocybin Says, my friend.
Good to be here. Hello.
Yeah, it's really good to have you again. You have a lot going on, I think, since the last time we spoke, yeah?
Yeah, busy, crazy.
Bring us up to speed. You got property, you got an RFRA. What else is going on in your wonderful world?
Where do we even start? Yeah, so, a very low bar to joining Divine Assembly, just name and email. And so with that, we are up over 15,000 members, and we're very much a do-it-yourself religion. We have one tenet, which is each individual can commune with the divine and receive guidance. Mm-hmm. So we feel we don't need buildings, hierarchy, and clergy, doctrine, all that. That one tenet, we think, kind of covers it all. So, hard for me to say exactly what's going on in the TDA universe, because a lot's going on in different places, and I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll see bulletin, little things posted in coffee houses about some religious meeting, some church meeting. It looks a little psychedelic, and that looks interesting. I'll look it up, and it'll say built on the TDA platform. I'm like, okay. I have no idea who these people are. And so a few congregations are big-ish. Tend to get 100 members or so every week. We're still doing our 4-day, 3-night festival that's coming up at the end of June, Revival Festival, ourrevival.org, O-U-R, Our Revival. We have the property that we're building magic on slowly. Big plans out there. We can circle back on that if you want. And I think probably the main thing is, TDA is a platform that anyone can build on. And a good thing, you and I, we don't get to just crack open a book and read it. And that's our, we need to worry about Popo knocking down doors, right? And people getting arrested when we worship. So unfortunately, we're forced to think along those lines. And, for TDA, I think it's a good platform for people who want to do religion on their own terms, because they can point to us, say, I'm part of that. And that has 4 years of experience, and everything we do is sober. And, tough to say we're just playing at religion to get around drug laws.
What do you mean everything that you do is sober? What do you mean?
So every TDA function that I'm going to call us the mothership, the ones that started it.
That's the same. We're using mothership as well.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah.
Our revival festival, our Sunday meetings, if we just have fires and campouts, they really are sober activities. It's not a wink and a nod sort of thing. We started by doing big group ceremonies, and that just scared the hell out of me, because people were just showing up, and it really was like a, yo, bro, hook me up. And I didn't know what it was. And, I think what you do, and I'd like to know more, like to be reminded on that, or y'all might have evolved, but we don't have a big intake thing, and I just don't want to do that. And if you're going to hand out a psychedelic, in my opinion, know who you're handing it to. And so for us, I think that should involve organic groups where you pick who you're tripping with. You make sure you know this person. We don't want to certify or say anyone's safe. You figure that out. We think that's where safety is. But for churches that want to hand out a sacrament in meetings and stuff, it seems, at least my experience is, know who these people are, do some screening, so you just really don't end up being a drug dealer. No offense to drug dealers. It's not. Seriously.
Hey, it's a noble profession.
Can be. Can be. They're good and bad. Because what a lot of the world calls drug dealer, to me, they're medicine men. They stick to these medicines, and without the tremendous risk they run, so many of us couldn't worship. So,
absolutely.
So, I don't aspire to be that. And again, no offense to it. I really want to do the religious stuff. And so, everyone else, you take care of the details when you're dealing with the sacrament. We'll be more the community.
So I am interested in kind of, there's obviously two kind of threads here, the sacrament work and then the non-sacrament work. And when you say you want to do the religious stuff, and so what's that look like for y'all? How does your community without the sacrament define, or what does your quote religious kind of gathering practice behavior look like?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I used to lovingly make fun of Unitarians. I'm like, what do you do? You get together and do what? You talk politics. What is this? But no, they're far more organized than TDA. It's just when we get together, as we kind of are this religious community of people who believe in individualized worship. So it kind of, what do we do and get together? It's kind of a weird thing. I think we're on our best display at this revival festival, where 4 days we just hang out, and so much we have presentations, seminars about how to live a better life, right? One of the things I'm most proud of that we're helping bump forward is dbtwithfriends.com, dialectical behavioral therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know if you
Oh,
have any.
I would be diagnosed borderline personality.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if you have any borderline crazy in you. I do.
Definitely. Oh, do you really?
Yeah, yeah. When I found that out, that was a Rosetta Stone to why I do what I do.
God, yes.
There was this huge, like 5-10% of my life. I'm like, why do I do this? it's just so incongruent with everything else. And okay, well, because I'm borderline. That's what borderlines do, it seems.
Oh, damn.
But so, we really are dealing with the human as a whole. And part of that whole includes spirituality. Mm-hmm. Western world, we really silo these things out. And so, New Testament says what? Where two or more are gathered, there I am. That's really kind of our worship, is connecting with other humans. Mm-hmm. And so the more churchy stuff, that's individualized, contemplation, integration through our creeds. Who am I? What do I want to be? And then, it's not like we lead with that in interactions with each other in the world. It's just we're working on improving ourselves and then presenting as gods or as, better humans. And that kind of, our lives tend to become our ministries, it seems.
Yes, I love that. Our lives become our ministries. I think that's the core of this whole thing.
Tell me, if you don't mind, relate some of that back to what you're doing. Where are you guys on what does it take to belong? And then how do you handle sacrament in your congregation? And if that's all boring to your listeners, because they know backwards and forwards, give that whatever attention you want, of course.
Well, we've got a growing listenership. The podcast has gone through an evolution as well, and I think it's expanding. So I can share a little bit of that. We are much more of providers than you are. It sounds like we do have ceremonies with sacrament. We have a variety of different ceremonies. Some of them are integrated with intentional IFS work, so internal family systems.
Oh my gosh, we have some members just eating that up. My wife just started.
It's getting big in psychedelics.
Awesome.
Yeah. Really powerful stuff. We just went up to Maine and did what we call a Psilocybin. So this is a term that Amy Samuelson and one of our board members came up with, because
I'm stealing that from you.
Oh, it's fine. No, we created that for the world to use. That's what
celebration.
Celebration. I've done so much work with trauma around with individuals and trauma, and that's extremely valuable. But it seems like in the therapy world, in the psychedelic world, we've kind of fetishized trauma, and we've got to just continue digging into the shadow. We've got to continue to explore. When if you intentionally focus on the positive and expand the positive and joy and celebration, then I think that brings just as much, if not more, healing than, constantly digging into old wounds. So that's kind of the concept behind that. The biggest thing that we're doing, though, that I know is super empowering to our membership, is these minister cohorts. So when you and I last talked, we were just developing this, and it's really taken off in a pretty big way. So we have 4 different levels of ministry. One is called the subtle sacrament. So that's working with anything less than a gram. And then we have what's called the myself ministry, which is basically training people to work with psilocybin on their own, in their own home with their spouse as a sitter or whatever. And then we have the friends and family ministry, which trains people to administer to as it sounds. And then we do the community minister program, which is training people to work more with the community at large. And we've got a guy in Maine that's got a significant community up there, a woman in Indiana that's got a significant community up there, in Washington State there's a significant community, and one just starting to develop in Ohio. So just really, really empowering people to do the work, first and foremost on their own, and then sharing that out, slowly as they feel safer and more comfortable with it. Still doing some cultivation courses and all of our Sunday meetings and all of the other stuff. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. So it's been real awesome. I want to, though, come back to this borderline thing, just if you don't mind, because this has been something that for me has been about a 3-year revelation. I just kind of understood why I was so fucking crazy. And it has, like you said, it's been a Rosetta Stone. And just because so few people are willing to talk about this, one of the most stigmatized conditions. I mean, when I worked in Jamaica, I had therapists down there that I heard saying, I will not work with borderline clients. They're just crazy and there's no fixing them. And then I found out that's what I was. And I was like, oh shit. So like, how did that unfold for you? Was that part of your ayahuasca ceremony back in the day, or when did this come up?
So, I started doing psychedelics early in 2017 and started seeing reality more clearly, seeing bits and pieces of it, filters falling off, and that helps to see things more clearly. And I really started to see how harsh I am on myself and my language to myself. I am incredibly should be thrown in jail, abusive toward one person on the planet, me. To other people, I'm pretty kind. I'm pretty, and so I started seeing pieces, and I even was telling a friend, I said, a couple things. I was telling her, I said, I don't think I see reality like other people do. And she said, well, what is reality? I'm like, this, I know. This is not a theoretical conversation.
You don't want to know. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I know the grass is green, the sky is blue, but at times I really get mixed up. Like in conversations, here is a range of it's acceptable within this range to interpret what was said. I'm way outside that range at times, and I don't know when. And then at another time, I told her, I said, I think everyone has a cup that holds love. I feel that when I'm with people, but the second they leave, the bottom drops out, and I can't hold anything. So I'm just describing what it means to be borderline. I've just always had this fear, this obsessive fear that I'm going to end up all alone by myself under a bridge. And I would always, you're supposed to face your monster in these trips. So often my trips, I would get to this place where I'm entirely alone. I'm like in the world's biggest building with shiny terrazzo floors. Like, hello, 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 and I know I'm all alone. So I start running, and I know I'm never gonna find anything. So I would always get to a place like that and just freak out. I'd suck my thumb in some manner and just try to bail out of the experience, not realizing that was my monster. That's what it means to be borderline. You're afraid you're going to be alone. Everyone's going to abandon you. And so, I got to the point where I think psychedelics can do this, where we're seeing stuff, but it just becomes like we're being spun around in a hall of mirrors. And I think that can be problematic if we don't have resources, help to find the way out. And so, it was like a year ago, I told a therapist friend, I'm struggling. Things aren't right here. And she gave me 2 recommendations of therapists. I went to see them both. I'm like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. In like 8 weeks in, both of them, you're borderline, Holmes. And same thing. All I knew is, I remember when, Pete Davidson kind of said, yeah, I'm borderline. And he was in a pickle, and everyone just kind of, oh, okay, good luck.
Yeah.
Said, oh my gosh, that just stopped the lynch mob, because they're like, oh, you're like legit crazy. And I remember that's all I thought instantly was Pete Davidson said those words. I'm borderline. In the lynch mob, like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, saying, it's like, yeah, borderline carries such a stigma, and it is such a tough thing to live with, or as, so many attempt and do succeed to suicide with. But, oh my God, through dialectical behavioral therapy, through learning skills that other people manage to learn when they're 8 years old, 12 years old, life becomes so peaceful.
Wow, man, I'm so glad that you shared that. It's been a real struggle for me. I mean, the suicidality thing is like, I think borderlines have the highest percentage of successful suicide of any mental health disorder. It's some serious shit. It's some serious shit, and you can't. the ironic thing is that you can't really do it on your own, yet that's what the condition continues to tell you, is that you are on your own.
Yeah.
You know. So wow. And
Yeah,
how do
it's so on that, borderlines are 50 times, not percent, times more likely to attempt suicide.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
1 out of every 10 will suicide.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Borderline means a reduced life expectancy of like 20 years, 25, 20 years, I think. And the reason isn't suicidality. It's just you hit a point in life where you just stop giving a fuck. You just,
mm-hmm,
so it's heart disease. It's you can't go on anymore. You just quit. And I mean, it's borderlines are 1 to 2% of the population, but like 25 to 50% of the prison population.
mm-hmm.
Because of, I'm sure if you're borderline, what you know well, what I know well is there are just these times in my life where just complete lack of impulse control. I mean, I stole a car, and when I was in high school, I liked it. I wanted it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just all sorts of weird stuff where I'm like, it's not who I am. What's going on here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I've also found that it is a pretty valuable condition when it comes to being empathic for others and being supportive of others. And I've credited it to what I call my psychedelic superpowers. You know, I mean, I'm an excellent facilitator. I can work with I work with extreme individuals, and it's kind of no big deal because the inside of my head is more fucked up than anything that you could
Right.
ever bring out, you know?
Right.
So it's a balance. It's a balancing act. How does spirituality, how does your religious practice, you know, affect your condition? Or
Yeah. I mean, that's the money question. I wouldn't have got here to this place of peace without my religious practice. I mean, it's again, religious practice, you know, Christianity, so much of the foundation of that is Christ performing miracles and healing. And so, you know, he healed the crazy too. Remember, it's not only physical, it's, you know, the demons, the spirits ran out of that person into the swine, and they ran and drowned themselves because those mental demons are so bad. And you know, so healing is healing. And once, you know, I left Mormonism just so jaded against religion and therefore God, and thought it was all just the biggest hoax. And most religion is a hoax, but spirituality is real. And what religion is so much, it's the place where spirituality goes to die. It's religion is, you know, it is the stolen booty of people's spirituality, right? It just tells people that spirit, they're not enough, and steals from them spirituality, and then calling it religion just meets it back in coffee spoons, right? With all sorts of conditions and control. And so finding through psychedelics that spirituality / religions is what we make it. It's what we call it. That is an individualized thing, and it doesn't need dogma and hierarchy. What it just needs is connection. Oh man, you know, that just freed up an entire universe. It did become something motivating and inspiring and lifting. And through that, you know, I found myself. I found authenticity, and with that, have a much better grasp on reality, and through that peace. And so, to me, the Holy of Holies, right? You get into psychedelics, and oh my gosh, you see the amazing colors and shapes. And I thought the mystic, you know, the Holy of Holies would be just that times a million, where my jaw would be wide open because I couldn't comprehend the majesty. For me, the Holy of Holies is just seeing reality. It really is seeing that the grass is green and the sky is blue. That you and I are having a conversation. I'm dialed into what you're saying. I'm communicating what I'm feeling. We are connecting on this. To me, that is heaven, because it is something I have not had for most of my life. And it is the place where I find peace.
so how are you relating with community now in this different context as compared to, say, your Mormon days?
Yeah. So great question. It's kind of I'm far more centered and way less centered. That I'm worrying about me, right? That I have one person on this planet I'm responsible for and I get to control, and that's me.
Mm-hmm.
So taking ownership of how I walk this earth. For example, not requiring my wife to babysit me because, being borderline, not knowing what it was, having no skills, I could not regulate my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was going to be peace in the house, then she and the kids would regulate my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm late for a meeting because I'm late for every meeting and I don't know where the keys are. Well, oh my gosh, everyone needs to go find the keys or I might just shit myself. I'm so out of control, and so that's part of it is realizing, oh my gosh, to love me has meant to babysit me.
Mm-hmm.
People don't really have to do that anymore. So it lets them breathe a sigh of relief, lets a lot more people connect with me and me connect with them in ways where I don't expect them to carry my baggage. And so, that's the one thing is I'm in control of me. So being centered in that, but then with the confidence and peace that comes with that, I don't need to be, hey, look at me, hey, look at me, hey, look at me, which I've done that my whole life. And so I'm really turning into a bit of a hermit. I just love staying home with Sarah, going on a walk with Sarah, and just melting into the two of us. And, we're fortunate that a daughter lives with us. The three of us are together. I used to go out a lot. I think it was FOMO stuff. And now I'm just not out looking because I already have peace and I don't know what could be better than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
How about you? What are you finding?
Well, it's interesting, like what you say in terms of babysitting yourself, because when I'm not, I wouldn't ever say that I was babysitting others in the past, but all of my attention was focused outward on other people, what impression I was making on them or what way I could help them. And I have never taken care of myself, just drinking, smoking, all the horrible behaviors. And since I've been in community, like I've never been in community before, and growing up Catholic, you got all the people around you, but it's all surface level. It's all just a bunch of bullshit. Nobody's really talking about the stuff that matters. So when we're in community with people who are actually talking about real life issues and real life experience, then it is providing me an opportunity to, for one, understand that actually a lot of people do suffer from similar, internal perspectives as myself, and so I'm not alone in that. And I'm also realizing more and more that I can't really help anybody unless I'm helping myself.
Yeah.
And so I have turned a lot more of that focus inward, as I have started to understand that my outside world was so fucking chaotic because my inside world was chaotic. And now, like even Courtney last night was saying something like, the last year and a half or so is the first time that she's felt like in our 11-year marriage that there is kind of a consistent thread of calm and kind of stability in our relationship. And I just know I want to nurture that. I was so accustomed to things being so fucked up and thinking that's what I enjoyed, that now, like yourself, I'm so happy to be at home and to just sit back and chill with the kids, sit out in the yard, play with my dog, and just not have to be out, running for drinks or doing all the stuff. And it's sanctuary honestly has saved my life. It's kind of weird to say that the church that I founded is the thing that has saved me because of the people that have come to it, but it's really true. And I guess that's what one of the things that I would love for us to kind of dig into is this kind of fundamental part of being a human is being within community, is having a relationship with the divine through each other. And our world, even with all the religions that we have, it seems like there's very little of that real connection between people. And so, yeah, I just kind of wonder what you would say to, you know, again, like juxtaposed to the Mormon faith, this more authentic community, like how that, like, what do you see that bringing to the world? Where do you see like opportunities that can arise out of these healthier ways of relating and engaging to each other?
Yeah. Yeah. Mormonism, it, uh, Mormons are simultaneously the most connected and disconnected humans on the planet. If you ever, the Kevin Bacon, what is it, 6 degrees
6 degrees.
6 degrees. With Mormons, it's 2-3 degrees tops. Any other Mormon on the planet, just because of the way we are. And so we know each other or know people who know each other. It's if you needed to talk to any Mormon on the planet, just about any Mormon who's been around, we can connect you by nightfall. It's just everyone knows everyone. And but at the same time, so very connected, but at the same time you stop going, and this freaks out everyone. It's what you thought you had these great relationships, they end like that. Because you're pariah, you're shunned, because the assumption is in getting people, using the devil to bond people, and using apostasy and all of that, temptation, Satan. The dogma is, the beliefs are, if someone leaves, well, they're messed up. The only real reason they're leaving is because Satan has hold on their heart. So they don't tell you to shun, but why would you hang out with someone who clearly is following the devil? So it's such an abrupt ending. So it's a very shallow connection. And, I think that helped played into my mental makeup that, Mormons walk this earth as strangers, right? Everything we do is evil and repugnant to God. And any natural tendency or thought we have is horrible. So you just walk around hating yourself, and it's tough to really connect to others. And so most of my life, it is this feeling of being absolutely alone. And I just always get to that place so fast. Now what I'm realizing is that was never true. That was never true. That was just fiction going on in my brain. I've always been blessed by people who love me, but my mind really distorted that. But through that feeling, that all-consuming feeling of aloneness, that's why I started TDA. Is like, okay, I'm without a community now that I've left the Mormon church. I want a community. What would it look like? Psychedelics, mushrooms, they're a great way to connect. Let's do this. So in large part, TDA is a very selfish act of me just not wanting to be alone. Who wants to experience mushrooms and hang out with me? And there are a lot of people who I think walk this earth with that feeling of aloneness. And I think they heard that cry. And, the experience I was telling you about, that I found this great friend who, she's just amazing at integration, just by the way she is. And she helped me discover some things. And so many other people in this community that and then Sarah kind of started to help others, but to help ourselves. They have given me clues of, I built a bridge that they could cross to come to this, but then they've built so many bridges for me to find this peace, find sanity, find authenticity. It's yeah. If anyone else has, reaped so many mental, spiritual rewards from TDA other than me, this is good work. They've got to be really happy.
That it is beyond ironic to me that we're both founders of these very similar communities and both struggling with very similar challenge. It's like someone told me when we remain now a good friend, someone that I do very much trust and feel connected with, um, said to me the other night, we did a little MDMA dance party, and we were out there dancing and having a good time. And he said to me at one point, he said, Eric, he said, I hope you can see how many people believe in you. And if you will believe in yourself just a fraction of the amount that these people believe in you, this thing is unstoppable. And it is. It really brought me to the realization that, like you said, I have always been surrounded by incredible people who have loved me. And for the most part, when those relationships have ended, it's because of me and my internal dialogue that became externalized. So I just don't think that there is anything more powerful than community, like real, authentic, vulnerable community for spiritual mental health healing. And all the stuff that I've seen in all the years with psilocybin, I've witnessed more powerful transformation within Sanctuary than I have in all of the psychedelic sessions that I've done over the years, even without mushrooms to a large extent. The mushrooms obviously facilitate it exponentially. But man, what a medicine community is. So you talked about, I'm really curious here, what your thoughts are now on this, idea of like the other world, right? Like you said, the Mormon theology, somebody's, persuaded by the devil or all the bad spirits and angels and ray. How do you engage with that conceptually now, the idea of a spirit world?
Yeah. I think I'm fighting for the title of most boring theological, the most boring theological view of any church founder ever. I'm a biology major. I think that we are an accident of biology and evolution. Here we are. I think that we're born, just like any other animal is born, we die, and that's it. We're dead. We get to be a part of it for a season. But in that, I find so much meaning and magic that you look at. To me, that speaks so more strongly to the majesty of the divine than any poof kind of God. That all of these forces came together, that the universe, this technology, here we are, we're talking. Are you kidding me? How the hell does that happen? That's majestic. And it means I have this one lap, man, this one life. And I just get to cram it as full as I can with connection. We're getting into funeral stuff, afterlife stuff.
Okay, nice. Us too.
Are you really? Oh my gosh. It just kind of happens with the religious community, right? So conversations with members, but we're looking for, because to me, psilocybin, our sacrament, is all about connection. It is the ultimate connector. TDA, we try to be built along the organizational structural lines of mycelium, so it's all about connections. The biggest disconnect that we know is living and dead. So we're working to bridge that a little on afterlife stuff. But just, being willing to call it religious, which I don't know how you felt at first, but I'm telling people we're going to start a religion. They're like, no, we're not. No, we're not. My wife, she's like, we just left one goofy ass religion. We're not going to start another one. But by being willing to call it that and say there is something else out there, it is incredibly inspiring to me. I don't think there's, an anthropomorphic God. I don't think there's a sentient God, but there is this thing, the divine, that we get to be part of. I have two very important sacraments, psilocybin and toad, 5-MeO DMT. 5-MeO, it always takes me to this place. where I'm the tiniest speck on a speck of absolutely nothing. I'm so insignificant that my lofty concerns, my dilemmas, how could they possibly matter? Because I'm so insignificant. But rather than this desperation, this aloneness, I'm like, oh, I can't screw up, because I'm so insignificant. But then I see the universe around me, people around me, everything, and I'm like, I am a small part of the most amazing thing. It's like in the Celestial Symphony, I have a cowbell, and I can either bang the hell out of it, I can be quiet, I can do whatever I want with it, and I can't screw it up, right? Because I'm insignificant in the symphony, but I'm part of it.
Yeah, that realization that everything is always right, that there's just, it's like whatever is happening, like this is the right thing, kind of for me anyway, has been really valuable. I mean, the way I experience this is just as a mystery, like all the religions and theologies that think they have it nailed down, like it's just like, to me, it's just a big joke because it's all a fucking mystery. I mean, even look right now, they're starting to say that the Big Bang, first it was James Webb Telescope said, well, universe isn't 13 billion years old, it's 26 billion years old. And now they're saying that, well, the math is starting to suggest that it wasn't actually a Big Bang, it was a reverse Big Bang, and that maybe we live inside of a black hole. It's just like, shut the fuck up. Nobody has any clue.
Yeah. We're such interesting monkeys.
We are that.
I mean, we really are smart. We really are smart monkeys, but we do just think we can figure it all out.
Yeah.
With these melons, we can figure it all out.
Yeah. Well, you have to be involved in politics like you were. You have to have a perspective on that like no other, right? Like all of the fucking bureaucracy and all the bullshit that we create to solve problems that ultimately just makes more problems.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I am despite all evidence to the contrary, I'm a huge fan of representative democracy. Governments exist to solve problems, and it's not a pretty way to do it. But I mean, man, I will rail on people who are in those positions now in our state and Congress, and what buffoonery and what buffoons. But I'm a big fan of the process, and when I take a step back, yeah, they're buffoons, but I'm glad they're doing it. I'm sure not willing to do it.
It does seem, I don't know that I would say it's the best. I mean, it's considering what we've got. I definitely don't want a dictator. Definitely like to have, a voice in the process. It feels like our voice is getting more and more silenced, which is where the churches around the psychedelic churches in particular may have a more significant role to play as time goes on here, particularly in the psychedelic movement. I mean, what are you seeing there in regards of this kind of interface between psychedelic therapy, psychedelic religions, and the law?
Yeah, so Chacruna put on an event a couple weeks ago in San Francisco. So Birla Bache and her crew, it was amazing, and really kind of the first one I've ever been to. I realize, we do our things, and I'm just not traveling much, but it was awesome. And so David Bronner was talking, Dr. Bronner Soaps, and the question was for his panel, what is the most underreported thing in psychedelics right now? And he said religion. Because he spent a lot of time doing policy stuff in the California legislature. He was big time involved in Oregon measures 109 and 1011. What was it? Those two. 109, 10, I think.
10, yeah.
But he said religion. He said religion is a 50-state play. I think that's a direct quote from him. And so... you see it with evangelicals, right? I mean, evangelicals are massively carving out territory for themselves in the town square. Mormons, too, are great at it, where their opinions matter more. They have veto rights over the rest of democracy just by how they've got courts and others to interpret statutes, create statutes. And the funny thing is, what they lose sight of, what Mormons lose sight of, Utah just passed its Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is that that law came about because of psychedelic worship.
Mm-hmm.
It first
Right.
was interpreted by the Supreme Court robustly in a case that unanimously upheld psychedelic worship. So RFRA, it absolutely covers psychedelic worship. And what it largely means is people who safely and sincerely worship with psychedelics, government can't really burden them and the practice of their beliefs without absolutely compelling reasons, and then going about those reasons in the least restrictive manner possible. So, yeah, psychedelic religions always have played an important part in religious freedoms in the United States. And I think as people like you and I and many others who are creating these churches, psychedelics are now coming to the forefront. And I'm going to point out, you and me, it's not surprising that Borderlines started these things when we did,
Right.
because part of it is we want people to hang out with. We don't want to be alone. And that impulse control thing that I imagine you're the same. I'm
going to do what the fuck I want.
Yeah, this is the right thing.
Yeah.
I practiced a religion most of my life that didn't work. This is better. And if I go to jail by sharing this, fuck it, I go to jail.
Right.
Life's experiential. Never been to jail. If it ever came to that, I might be ruining the day, but that's where I am. I'm like, I'm obviously going to take steps. I'm not courting it. I don't ever want that knock on the door. But if it goes down that way, shit, this is my religion, and I can't stop it. This is how religious people act.
No, I have been to jail for mushrooms, and I don't ever want to go through that again, which was, in part of the impetus for Sanctuary. So that others don't have to be subject to that. But yeah, no, this is what is the right thing to do, and I'm going to do what is the right thing to do. The RFRA it's incredible, really, when you start looking at it. That it was such a bipartisan bill that went through like it did. And being centered around psychedelics, like you say, I try not to catastrophize, and there's always a part of me that kind of wonders, are we going to maintain this freedom? And there are times when I do lose a little sleep over it, because I sure as shit don't want to go to jail, especially now that my life has found some modicum of stability. But at the same time, like, this is absolutely our birthright. If there's anything that's more our birthright than to take mushrooms that were painted on the fucking cave walls 12,000 years ago, I don't know what it is. It's sex. Sex is the only other thing that is that we can see, we know is innate to being a human. So those two things are my primary sacraments anyway. So the RFRA, what caused the state of Utah to adopt that? Was it around TDA having influence, or how'd that come about?
No, it's evangelicals in the United States, a lot of them legitimately believe that government is persecuting them, and Mormons are constantly trying to sit at the evangelical cool table. It's never going to happen, but so Mormons also feel like they're being persecuted by government. So I'm not aware of how Utah government is persecuting Mormons, but apparently it's severe. And so, this was clearly passed so that Mormons can act Mormon and be Mormon and, not fear government. Part of this might be it just unfinished business. We weren't on the hate wagon at that point when we had the great cake baking panic of 2013-14 that, bakers were being dragged out of bed at gunpoint at night, forced to make cakes for gay weddings. At that point, that's when 2015 was when I passed my non-discrimination legislation in Utah. including the T, LGBTQ rights and employment and housing. So we weren't on the, hate the gays, hate the trans train then like the whole Republican Party is now. So it might just be unfinished business. But I wonder in part if it doesn't have to do with the church really getting its ass handed to it in 2018 on a weed referendum. We had a medical cannabis bill that it jumped the walls of the Capitol and was on the ballot, an initiative to allow medical cannabis. And it was set to pass by, it was 60% plus. Mormon Church threw everything it could at stopping it. It didn't have the sway to do that. So, it resorted to dishonesty and subterfuge to say, okay, we're going to pass something. We're going to make sure the legislature does. We're behind it. So you don't need to support this. And, that really cratered support because people want to get along. It's still passed, like 53%. And I think that really scared the church to see how it has lost control of Salt Lake County and Summit County. That's Park City. And it's lost enough control in the rest of the state that it couldn't tell the voters how, it can tell the legislature to do what it wants and legislature will do it. But it can't tell voters how to do it. So I think it sees the day where it's lost a lot of its power in Arizona, in Nevada, clearly in California, and it sees that day coming in Utah. So maybe it's that. But I think it's just kind of Mormon persecution complex, which is, again, that's a devil. That's the way to rally the troops. We're being persecuted. You must fear the world.
Right. So does this, I have to ask, does this permit the polygamy has always been illegal, but practiced kind of underground, or does this give legitimization to that?
Yes, absolutely. How can it not?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would.
So it's interesting. One of the first big challenges to the First Amendment was the Reynolds case, and that involved Utah polygamy. So that's a huge one when you're looking at religious rights. That was kind of quietly, that outlawed polygamy, saying we don't care if it's religion, that doesn't cut it. But that a Utah district court in 2000, let me get to you here, end of 2013, actually kind of legitimized polygamy, saying this is religious persecution to go after these people. This district court, we're not going to do it. Now that was the same week that Utah was the first state to apply the Supreme Court's DOMA and Prop 8 decisions to say marriage equality is the law of the land. That happened the same week, Okay. So that polygamy case, no one kind of paid attention to it. But, what they're looking for to see, can government, if government cannot substantially burden religion unless it has these compelling interests. It goes about the least restrictive means possible. So what is a compelling interest in stopping people from getting married? Well, there really isn't a compelling interest. There's some interest, but if adults want to do that, who cares? Now, for really young girls, which that was the case often, of course, age requirements. But in terms of, if a man and a woman want to be married, or a man and a man, or, 3 people or 4 people or 5 people, really what are the government interests and how do they go about those in the least restrictive manner? So, I think this clearly blows the doors off of any restriction on polygamous marriage in Utah.
That's always kind of baffled me how, especially with gay marriage and marriage equality coming in vogue in the last 10 years or so, why there has still been such a distinction, such a barrier up for multi-family marriages or whatever. I mean, obviously the Mormon, it gets pretty twisted when you see these 14-year-old girls with these 50-year-old men and weird shit. But, my wife and I have been in a polyamorous relationship since we've been together. And we've had, over the years, had a couple of women that we've dated. And like, I've definitely thought about that as like seeming like an injustice. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be tied to religious persecution. It's just like, the fuck, I'm a human being. If I want to like legally bind my life to, whatever number of people, whose business is that? Why does the government? And I know this is a hell of a tangent to go down, but where does that original? Is it strictly a kind of a religious stigma that implicated that law in the first place, or is there some deeper purpose to only having marriage permissible between two people?
Yeah, I mean, in the Old Testament, there's plenty of polygamy, and it comes and goes in society, and whatever we do is the normal way to do it. However someone else does it, if they don't follow that, then that's the heathen way or the wrong way. So it's just kind of where societies go at different times. But it's interesting, in the Obergefell case, where the Supreme Court did find a marriage equality, was the law of the land. In his dissent, Scalia says, how do we say no to polygamous marriage after this? And I think the answer is you can't. And especially where you have RFRA at the federal level and at a lot of states. I have no idea how a court could say no to polygamous marriage, sincere religious polygamous marriage of adults in Utah.
Yeah, interesting. So how do you envision religion evolving then? Like, as you're saying, whatever is normal is the way that we do things, and as normal is changing pretty drastically right now, particularly around religion. Do you have any insight into how this thing unfolds?
Well, no, but I can tell you what I'm excited about, what I'm working on, which is the way I hope it unfolds, is you really do see, like I said, evangelicals can be a law unto themselves. Because in the United States, which is a Christian nation, it isn't intended to be. Legally, it's not, but it functions like one, right? Courts, they get Christianity. And so they're going to make that the standard. That is the law of the land. And so, I think that's what you'll see is anything that Christians do, that is the norm. And, that's the baseline against which everything else will be measured.
But what are you trying to do? As you said, what you're trying to do is create a different future. How do you describe that?
Yeah. So what I want to do is upset that norm or challenge that, because evangelicals, as Christians, they can say, well, this is what my faith commands. And courts are going to go, okay, they're going to grant them the sincerity on that. They're going to say, clearly, you believe that because you're evangelical, your faith, and almost the crazier someone is about something, the more adamant. Well, that shows tremendous sincerity. Whereas no matter what you and I say or do with our sacraments, a court will not grant sincerity like that. They're going to look at you and me and our father and say, you're just trying to get around drug laws. I mean, we're having profound experiences. We would put that in the blocks next to anyone else's experience. Let them race, we would win. Our experiences are amazing, life-changing. Courts won't grant us that. And you even take a step further where TDA, our brand of religion, is individualized, completely autonomous. And so where I hope we're going is that what evangelicals currently enjoy under the law, everyone enjoys. Where if you believe it and you're sincere about it, then that is your religion. And that gets as much respect in the town square as anyone else's God, anyone else's religion. So I don't think that I've got to the point where I don't think I have a lot to add to psychedelia. Psychedelia was doing great before I got here. There's so many great voices out there. I just don't think I have much to add. But I think I do, TDA, me, I think we might have something to add when it comes to this principle of individual spiritual sovereignty, religious sovereignty, which what I would love to accomplish with this, we need to make this bullshit distinction to get legal protections between spirituality and religion. Right? Because religion is protected under the laws, not spirituality.
Yeah.
What the fuck is spirituality other than someone's individualized religion?
Right. Right. Because even like someone who belongs to like the Catholic faith, for instance, right? They're part of the overarching church, the religion, but they have an individual practice that as long as it fits within that code of ethics or that general framework of the religion, they're still considered a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think we can crank out a Latin term. I think it's sanctum internum. That, that is where religion really happens is, you line up 10 Mormons, and even though that is very dogmatic, top-down, prescriptive religion, they're going to believe different things. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, everyone's religion is individualized. Mm-hmm. But I just hope that I can play a role, TDA can play a role in getting that to be recognized in the town square, that religion really is an individual sport that we play together in the community.
Same way, man. Same. I mean, we have this framework, we have our code of ethics, and certain guidelines and principles, but it is your relationship with however you describe this thing that people talk about in different ways and call many different things. I'm so kind of curious how things are going to develop at particularly the federal level for psilocybin churches in particular, because I'm sure you've seen what's happened with like the Detroit church that got popped, and they were for all intents and purposes, to me it looked like straight up just a dispensary that was calling itself a church, right?
Yeah.
And a couple of other instances. Well, you got the guy in Oakland who also interviewed for this
Kenny
chapter.
Hodges, isn't that his name?
No, David.
David Hodges.
Hodges, yeah.
Yeah.
But even to my understanding, David, he was raided and never arrested, still operating freely. The place in Detroit, the Soul Tribes, to my understanding, they were raided, shut down, and left alone, given cease and desist. So, it's interesting that even when raids happen on psilocybin and other psychedelic churches, there doesn't seem to be incarcerations or some of the other heavy-handed, responses that you have seen in the past or see with other drugs. And what does that say about the kind of the temperature of this within the federal and local law enforcement?
Yeah, I think that you have the Javert-like figures that they really have something driving them to go after psychedelics. You see that in Homeland Security. I mean, some of the biggest problems out there is Homeland Security because it does customs, raiding people with, Kevlar vests and Uzis and all that because they got mimosa root bark. They imported them. I'm serious. That's been going on.
I know. It happened in Utah?
Like 3 times. I represented 1.5 of the people.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I guess 2.5 of the 3 I'm thinking of. And so, seriously, man, Kevlar, Uzis, because they imported root bark. Mm-hmm. So that's a joke, right? In most law enforcement agencies, other than Homeland Security, they get that it's a joke. It's we had someone high up in DEA come to our services one Sunday, and he told me who he was, and so I held out my wrist. I said, "Well, shit, slap him on." So he laughed and he said, "No," he said, "we get this up top that a minute we spend on psychedelics is a minute we're not spending on fentanyl, opioids, and cartels." So I think that law enforcement, they get that there's a difference between these medicines, these sacraments, and opioids and cocaine, all the things that
Mm-hmm.
really do kill.
Mm-hmm. So do you think the way how so ayahuasca just had a pretty big win here in the States with Eagle and Condor.
Yeah, hats off to them. Big deal.
Yeah, Joe Tafur has done some amazing work over the years, and
Good team. Good team. They're
absolutely
amazing.
have a ton of respect for that guy. He was here in Louisville recently. But we've seen peyote as in that first case that you mentioned, go to Supreme Court. Do you think that is psilocybin going to have to go to the courts to get legitimization, or is it just going to kind of slowly grandfather in?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so yeah, we have those three cases, and those really, that's the universe as far as I'm concerned,
Mm-hmm.
of really great, meaty, definitive rulings on psychedelic worship. And yeah, they're all ayahuasca.
And the only one that's native to the U.S. is the Eagle and Condor, right? Everything
Yeah.
else was an import.
Right. They were both, so UDV and Santo Daime, Brazilian sects, they're part of that.
And then the peyote one connected to Native American church was a separate from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, Church of the Eagle and Condor, they're the only one of the three that isn't Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So the other two, of course, being Brazilian, they're syncretic, and they bring in a little of everything, including Christianity, as I understand it. So, when we're dealing with psilocybin as a sacrament, the same logic would apply: safety, sincerity. And so I think it would come down to sincerity, because psilocybin, it's safer than ayahuasca. I'm going to say that for two reasons. One is you're purging with ayahuasca, and that can throw off your electrolytes, and that can lead to some issues. So, a little something to be concerned about. You don't have that with mushrooms. Plus, I just can say that by qualifying it safe from a scientific viewpoint, because there have been tons of studies with psilocybin. So from a court perspective, is psilocybin safe? Yes. Is it as safe as ayahuasca? Yes. It just comes down to, okay, how are the people using? How's it being administered? Are there screenings? Are people being kept safe? So, if you're doing that, then yeah, it's just the sincerity. Is this real worship? Does it strike a Christian judge as being real worship?
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's probably not. I would be very surprised if it got like stamped with legitimization. I have a feeling that it's just gonna kind of continue to go on and go on and go on. Maybe there will come some organization or individuals that do have to prove their sincerity in a federal court to provide that precedent. But I don't know. For me anyway, right now, it seems kind of unlikely, given what we're seeing with even some of the quote, maybe bad actors that are just operating dispensaries under the guise of a church. How do you all navigate the varying religious backgrounds? It's like we have people come in with, yes, Christian, all the varieties of Christianity, Buddhist, a lot of different faith perspectives coming in. And it's been interesting watching all those traditions kind of dance together under one roof. And we at this conference we were just at, I had a lady who was actually a member of Sanctuary up in Maine, who I was on a panel, and she stood up and she said, well, I just want to say, it was kind of an out of place comment, but she said, I just want to say that, Sanctuary for me doesn't talk enough about God and Jesus, which I found kind of ironic, and it's interesting to note how I've run across a number of Christians who are just unwilling or incapable of acknowledging the enormous amount of trauma that Christianity has induced. But it provided an opportunity to kind of talk about all of the different perspectives and trying to give everybody kind of an equal playing field when that hasn't been the case. In any of your gatherings, are they majoritively Christian backgrounds, or what are you seeing there?
So I go to a few groups. I kind of roam around, but the one I go to mostly, it is here in the heart of Salt Lake, and so at least half the people come out of Mormonism. But we really don't have any theology. We just don't get
into it
collectively. Yeah, we don't care about the Bible and scriptures, and we're just all about connecting and being at peace with ourselves. And so it's kind of like whatever your religion you come from doesn't matter. It's like, okay, do you come from Texas, Florida, Delaware? We don't, whatever. We don't care.
Yeah, for sure. It's just interesting seeing the individuals come together, for me anyway, from these different perspectives and kind of navigating that within themselves. I mean, we do, like on our Sunday services, we'll read from a variety of inspirational texts, and some of those will be Christian based, some of them will be Buddhist, and various perspectives. And I've just never been in a faith community where there are so many different faiths represented. And I don't think that we have really an issue with it at all. It's just kind of fascinating to see all these people coming together. We have we have a Discord chat, right? And we have, I think somebody wanted to start a thread of Christ as the container for the psychedelic experience. And then we're like, well, shit, guess we got to have Buddha as the container and Taoism. And so we created like all these different groups where people could talk about their faith perspective through the lens of psilocybin.
Yeah, I mean, I think the place where we really different faiths come together is we do talk a fair amount about overcoming religious trauma. I hope that, I hope we're accepting to people who are Christian and who do, I hope we are. I hope they don't find us hostile, because we do not hold back on admitting that religious trauma is a real thing that a lot of us, kind of the core group coming out of Mormonism, we have, and it's something that we need to heal, and we can help each other do that. So we're not, you'd have to say we're not, again, it's the individualized thing. We're not big fans of organized religion. I joke at times that TDA is disorganized religion.
So what how's that if you wind up in a court? Like, how does that kind of individualize spirituality in the context of, how does that get defended? How does that get interpreted?
It would be tough. Courts are looking for doctrine. They're looking for sacred holidays, looking for, a canon. They're looking for rituals, congregations, clergy that's trained in a certain way. In other words, they're looking for basically Christian religion, right? The attributes of that. And so saying that you are your own religion, again, evangelicals, they don't have to worry about it. They just say, I crack my Bible, I bring in a few friends, and that's our church. And that the judge would say, okay, they accept it, that's your church. Whereas when we do it, a couple of us get together, we, do a couple grams, and we're worshiping together. We enter the Holy of Holies. Judge be going, no. The Bible, yes. Actually talking with God, nah, doesn't sound But so what we encourage our members to do, because a court will be looking for scripture, go ahead and write out your creed. And that's your scripture to yourself. Who are you? What do you believe? What do you work to do? What do you work to not do? And it's a funny thing. I think a big motivator for people to start that is they want it to sit in a drawer in case the popo come with a warrant. Then they can say, this is my religion. This is what you are persecuting. But I think the real value of those creeds is they do become scripture to us, right? It's integration. When we're forced to think, maybe fear of going to jail forces us to sit down and write and think who we are, that can become scripture. And so part of what I want to do is I want, people are pretty they're good about sharing their codes. They're willing to do that, their creeds. And I kind of want to compile some of those. And I guess that would be TDA scripture. No one needs to follow it. I mean, hopefully it only speaks to the person. It only is directed to the person who wrote it. Hopefully they can amend it as they learn and all that. But it could be like the Book of Psalms, right? Where these become inspirational for other people. So, you know, I'm very frustrated by how slow certain things are going, like our property. Just really frustrated that everything's so slow. And I have these ideas on TDA, it's all so slow. But I do think that there is a virtue that slowness, you know, being disorganized religion, the divine disorder, the divine the divine disassembly, that it does kind of lead to organic growth. Is you know, it's kind of really just me and Sarah and a few people doing, you know, kind of their more independent things. We do not have a strong central leadership team, and so that only allows us, it forces us to only focus on a few essential things. And I think that's worked out, where because we're not running forward on here's this X, Y, and Z, people are being forced to, if they want community, if they want to worship, if they want certain activities, they're having to do it themselves. And that's what was, they're like, what is DDA? We're like, well, it's whatever you make it, because it's a platform, and that can be very frustrating to people. Some just leave. They're like, oh yeah, no, I wanted something more structured. But for the ones who stay, they end up building that. They will, you know, we don't even know about it. We're really close to a lot of these people. Turns out, you know, 10 of them have been gathering for ceremony in this beautiful mountain property every month for a year, and that's their worship. And I just love how it's organically growing.
Yeah, there's a real beauty in that. Real beauty in that. We're trying to kind of walk the line there, where we do see some need for centralized organization. We're working to implement holacracy as our governing model, but we want people to have the autonomy to create and do on their own, and we're certainly starting to see that. What are your plans for the property? If it's not moving fast enough, what is it that you want to see going on out there?
So Paul Stamets is a member of TDA, and he came out and spoke in January, helped us raise some funds, and we're going to do a Paul Stamets amphitheater out there. This is 700 acres where we have a mountain, we have a canyon, some sand dunes. It's an amazing piece of property, but you get, you know, anywhere on that property, including way high up, and you can look out forever. This is the Wild West, and you don't see another from anywhere on this big piece of property, including way up high. You can't see anything that isn't ours. You know, any structure, in other words, people. You can see forever. You can see to the setting sun. But we're just completely isolated out there, but we happen to have water and power because of the past use of the property. So we want to have that amphitheater, have good music, good, you know, gatherings, entertainment. We're putting a swimming hole out there, a beautiful natural swimming pool, an education center that's going to be kind of an earth ship, an inner structure. We're going to have, a team is forming, again, this organic stuff. So we have these amazing architects, Aranda Lash out of New York City, award-winning. They really are artists who happen to practice architecture. They're master planning it. They did the amphitheater, beautiful amphitheater design, which it lays so lightly on the land. All they've really done is just framed the Wild West. It's extraordinary. And part of the draw for them to participate is they want to participate in the environmental art around the Great Salt Lake. They consider that the epicenter of these big environmental landscape art objects like the spiral jetty. And their contribution, what they want to do, is a labyrinth. And it's on this beautiful knoll on our property. And because it is such a huge piece of property, just in this vast, vast, vast space. The labyrinth from start to finish is going to be 4 miles long.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah. Damn.
So I love the idea of that, imagine you're 3 miles into the labyrinth. And of course, because we don't have hierarchy, dogma, and doctrine, if you want to just walk over the rock piles and be in the center in 2 minutes, that's fine. Do that. We don't care. But, imagine you're slogging through and 3 miles in, you find this big rock that clearly someone was rucking, and on it says alcoholism, or it says, borderline personality disorder, BPD or something. That was someone's worship. They carried that load for 3 miles and then said, fuck it, I'm dropping it right here. So I love how this labyrinth could evolve, and you can see the prayers that people left. I got that idea. I spent time up in the Indian Himalayas doing public health work, and in those cold winters, they carve beautiful ornate prayers on rocks and then put them in the center of town. And so you just have all these rocks with beautiful designs on them. So that's where I got the idea, thinking that, okay, maybe some people would want to carve it on the rocks, but others just paint it or whatever. And that'd be such a beautiful thing. As you're on your journey, you can honor the journey that other people have taken.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing canvas that you have to paint on 700 acres out in the middle of Utah.
Yeah, we're excited. So, do you want to talk funeral stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is like some of the most cutting edge stuff that we're doing, particularly. Go ahead. What are you doing?
So, we had a member like 2 years ago. She lives in very rural Utah. She said, "Hey, we have a family cemetery in our town that they buried the last member of the family. Town doesn't know what to do with it. Why don't we buy that and do mushroom burials, do mycelial burials?"
Yeah.
And so we really were like, wow, that's awesome. That's great. And that kind of morphed into, okay, what if we did human composting using mycelium? And then it kind of morphed into something that we created, which is we're calling it 4-element passage, and it's pyrolysis. So it's anaerobic cremation, where instead of turning people into ash, they're reduced through heat into elemental carbon. And then that elemental carbon, it is supercharged with sacred biological material, in other words, spent mushroom cakes, and other things. And then it's added as a soil amendment in the dell, in a garden we're creating, a pollinator garden for bees and butterflies, especially the monarch butterfly, which needs milkweed, and it's being driven to extinction because of the lack of milkweed. So, remember, I'm at the core, I'm a biology major. We return to carbon and that. So while other religions say that, okay, this or that might happen after life and in the millennium, and what we know that through biochar, we will be there at the dell on that property for centuries, maybe millennium, helping create wonderful soil that retains CO2. It provides great home for microbes, so the soil will retain more water. We can crank up more pollinator species, serve more bees and butterflies and people there at the dell enjoying the beauty of it. So to us, that sounds profoundly sacred. And last week, I just sent an email to Division of Professional Licensing saying, hey, seems like this should be a health thing, but county and state health departments have pointed me to you because of your authority over, funeral services licensure. As I read that act, as I read the religious freedom stuff, I don't think I need a license. But not trying to get around anything. I want your expertise, so let's have a conversation. And that day, the director of the division emailed me back saying, hope you can appreciate by the nature of this, I'm going to need a few days. Give me a week and I'll get back to you. So we started that conversation, and I've just never cared what happens to me after I die. But man, this this excites me. And, to a lot of us, this feels like religion, and it'll be fascinating to see how the state of Utah, that on paper says it honors religion and free exercise of religion, how does it interact with us? Where will this go? How fast will it go?
Wow, fascinating. Yeah. Huh.
How about you? What are you guys kicking around?
Wow. Well, we're definitely looking into the human composting and all of that. What our primary focus is in terms of end of life care, though, is administering sacraments. So we have what's called sacred passage, which ours is passage as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I know we're like in some parallel universe over here, buddy. BPD and all this shit. Please use celebration for your big parties out at the ranch, please.
The thing is, I'm sitting here. I'm going, did I steal that from Eric? But my wife came up with it, so I don't think so.
No, wow. I think we're just catching the same frequency here. But we've done. I did a ceremony for one of Kentucky's first black surgeons 2 years ago, shortly before he passed, and his guy was incredible, man. He studied at Johns Hopkins in the 80s, and then he was trying to convince Johns Hopkins to study psychedelics, and he went down to Peru and did all his own ayahuasca stuff back in the 80s. Like a black man from Kentucky is very, very rare, and so he became a surgeon and passed away, and he donated a sizable amount to the church, and we used that kind of simultaneously as he was passing. We had a couple of members join who were going through a death doula certification, and they asked about integrating the two services, and so we created the sacred passage using some of the money that he left behind. And our first training is going to launch in, I think, July is when our first cohort will go through. So we have, if someone has gone through our at least 2 levels of ministry, the myself, which is a prerequisite for the friends and family, and then once they've gone through the friends and family, they can take this psychedelic death doula certification and combine all of this and be a sacred passage minister. In all the psychedelic work that I've done over the years, nothing has been as profound as working with end-of-life patients. I mean, this guy, we did 2 ceremonies, one of which was literally 3 days before he passed on his deathbed. He and I took mushrooms together, and it was just unreal. Unreal. It was so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
So beautiful. And so really excited about that. And I'm also really excited about the possibility that I think psilocybin is going to help not only improve quality of life for terminal patients, but may also see reversal of some conditions. I mean, there is a number of people that I've worked with who had advanced cancers, and after 6 or 7 ceremonies, continued to go into remission, and 3 out of those 5 people are living healthy lives now and are completely in remission. So I think there's so much more for us to uncover here. And I think what we're doing, Steve, that I feel like what we're doing and others in this space is more importantly than contributing to the psychedelic world, which I think you still do have important, like decentralization in psychedelics is a very important contribution. Spirituality in psychedelics is still a very important contribution. But what I feel like we're doing that's even more important is shifting the nature of spirituality, shifting the religious landscape in the United States. And if there's anything that the United States stands for me, it is that religious freedom. I mean, it's like, where else? I didn't even realize until after starting Sanctuary that there is quite literally nowhere else in the world that you can have this religious freedom, which seems to be a fundamental human right. Yeah. And so I am so grateful to be contributing to that, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think the closest to us is Brazil. Brazil allows for a lot of religious freedom.
Okay.
I do think, overall, there are pluses and minuses with both. But yeah, that's the thing is religious freedom. I cannot think of any place better to be than the United States.
And how interesting that it's opened up these doors for us with psilocybin and other psychedelics.
Yeah. So your sacred passage, you call it?
Sacred with a P, just like sanctuary with a P.
Of course, beautiful. I love it. So, yeah, that's beautiful. That's gorgeous. So that is not that doesn't involve how the remains are treated.
Not yet. Eventually, we have
when someone's knocking on death's door.
Yeah, we do have Debbie, who is the minister for that program. She is also certified in Green Burial Administration organization. So we're working towards all that. I think where we're a little hung up and where things are not moving as fast as I would like them to move for us is the property. We don't have a physical home quite yet. So that's something that we're looking at. And I have a feeling that there is money out there for work like what we're doing. It's just kind of coming to the point. I have pushed away money for so long, and I'm still like, that's not my focus at all. But recognizing the incredible opportunities that we have, then like it's obviously going to require money to create and build and grow all these programs and whatnot. So,
yeah, I love how, we are all connected, interconnected. It occurs to me, there's some guy who's really helping us out at the Dell, Nathan, and we have a bunch of Nathans in our life, so we call him Kentucky Nathan.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, he has property out your way, so I need to put you two in touch, and maybe we can figure out something where you at least have a temporary property to use.
I mean, we got a really good property about an hour south of Louisville that we have permission to work on. It's a 75-acre property where we do retreats and gatherings, but it's also a multi-use facility that people come in there and do various festivals. I mean, we're looking to do a larger scale celebration next year for like nationwide members. And I think that's going to be really transformative. I mean, bring more joy, bring more celebration into this work.
So, your celebrations, are those, what do you do? Are you kind of members only? Are you open to people outside of your formal membership?
So right now, anything that involves sacrament is members only. The unique thing about celebrations that we have tried to incorporate. So the last one that we did here in Kentucky was among ministers rather. So we had ministers who were trained, had been through all the programming. They had access to the celebration, which was a donation based only. I'm really working very hard to have all of our ceremonies be donation based only. And what that ended up being, and I really like this. So we had like 25 people there. We had 4 folks who did not do any dosing. And then because everybody had been trained to support each other, we kept the dosing capped at 3 grams. And everybody, I put people in teams of 3, so y'all had your trip buddies, and everybody just kind of took care of each other through the thing. We had the place demarked off where you could, you knew where to stay, and it was fucking beautiful. I want to see how many people we can have at one time taking mushrooms together safely.
Really?
Oh, I think there's a lot of potential there.
I'd love to be there and participate, but man, I don't want to put it on.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
We did that when we first started. We had some, where a bunch of people would take them. That just scared the absolute hell out of me.
Yeah, I'm not so, especially when you keep the dose low. And again, like everybody that comes has been through at minimum 8 weeks of training in cohorts. So there's already that solidarity that comes from being kind of in that group together and knowing that other people have been vetted and are, and so I feel very confidently that there is a way to do it, that's safe and enjoyable. Yeah,
especially if you're talking about, I don't care what group size is, if people, for experienced people, because no matter how experienced people are, you have enough people, someone's gonna have a rough go of it. But even other people who are fully tripping, they can deal with it, right? They collectively, if they been there before.
Absolutely. I mean, for most people, and we ask that people know their sensitivity. So if 3 grams puts you out of the range of coherence, then take 1.5 grams.
Yeah.
This is an intentional dose to connect with each other, to have we have some music and have some intentional communion in that way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I love in my, I take sacrament. I worship with a very small cohort, right? I mean, again, as I'm becoming better regulated, my circle really of tight people who I trip with and all that, it just gets smaller and smaller, right? Where I'm just absolutely at ease. I don't need to worry about this person's energy and all that. Yeah, I love that when, everyone's looking out for everyone else.
Exactly.
And it's fun to trip with newbies and all that too. But I've enjoyed that. But yeah, I just really enjoy those where you just know everyone's going to be okay, and the ones who aren't, collectively, they'll be okay.
They'll be okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm also looking forward. I mean, I have the vision for this property. Like, I could see like having like a big gathering where you kind of have it staged so that there's kind of an inner circle for those who are like dosing higher. I mean, I'm envisioning one day having kind of like, people who are really experienced, 10, 15, 20 of us coming together and doing like 10 or 15 grams each, and everybody diving in real deep and seeing what we can do. Because I still have this belief, and it continues to be reinforced from experience, that the work that we're doing in the psychedelic space is not just work on ourselves, that we are collectively healing. And so when we come together with that intention, I feel like we can expedite healing globally. Maybe it's a delusion, but fuck, I'm accustomed to living in delusion.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Steve.
Yeah, really a pleasure. Appreciate
Always
your
love
good
talking
work.
with you.
Appreciate your good work. It's important.
Likewise, 100%. Well, if there's anything that we can do to support you, I'm all for it. I've been keep watching y'all. I know you're doing good work. I especially respect and love the decentralization, non-hierarchical. I think that is so important in this world that has just like still reeling and still suffering from that top-down, slave master mentality, quite frankly.
Yeah, making us small instead of making us and allowing us to see that we're big.
And exactly. All right. Well, last, let me ask you, I know we asked you this question last time, but what is psilocybin saying to you these days, Steve Urquhart?
Psilocybin is saying to me that there is absolute peace out there, and that I'm headed in the right direction to finding it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, brother.